Hello, guys. We are going to be on page 209, history, page 209, rise of industry. So, last time we talked about the Sunday school movement, and we talked about a lot of the revival that happened in the 1700s. People coming back to the Lord, and we're going to talk about now on page 209 the rise of industry. The age of industry began in England at the time of the Wesleyan revival, so at the time that John Wesley was going around preaching to everybody. Before the age of industry, there were two ways to do work: by using animals or by using one's own muscles. The age of industry introduced machines constructed on scientific principles to do work. So they used science to create machines. Like, people have been doing that for a long time, the most efficient civilizations. The Egyptians, for instance, they constructed the pyramid using science of levers and fulcrums and everything like that. The use of machines brought such a change to the world that the period was called the Industrial Revolution. What the word revolution means, a change. If you have a revolution, you're seeking a revolution, you're seeking a change. Sorry, I'm very thirsty. The American Revolution, for instance, was where they wanted to change and revolt and change who their leadership was. And so the American Revolution, that's what that was. But this was the Industrial Revolution, the age of industry. I usually call it the Industrial Revolution. Some people call it the other thing. But it's where they started making machines and using them to do work. The change began on the farms. As many farmers began to pay serious attention to the Bible, they began to see that all the work that we do is a service to God and that it should be done heartily. Colossians 3:23 says, do everything unto the Lord, do everything heartily and unto the Lord, and as if, sorry, I'm remembering from my memory, do everything heartily, which means with all your might, and as if it's unto the Lord and not unto men, something like that. I may have a word different here or there. So you should do it with all your might, and you should pretend like you're doing the work for God and not for men. Like if you are building a deck, or you're, cleaning a floor. We probably would clean a floor differently if it was Jesus' house and Jesus hired you and said, can you, I'm gonna, could you please, I'll hire you and I'll pay you. Could you please, sweep this floor for me? It would probably be like, I'm gonna sweep this as best I can. Or maybe a more real life example, if you had your favorite athlete, Tom Brady or whatever, saying, you know what, hey, you look good. I'll pay you $50 if you sweep my kitchen floor, but just make sure you do a good job. You'd be like, I'd get every single speck of dust or something like that. So we should do everything heartily, and even more so God, right? We should do everything as if it's done unto God, not unto men. And so that brought about what is called the Protestant work ethic. Well, the Protestant work ethic is the biblical teaching that God expects all men to work, and that all work, so everybody should be able to work, and that all work is a noble duty to be performed toward God. So this was a belief around this time, that everybody has a responsibility to do something. You can contribute in some way, and you can work in some way and work hard. Not in the sense of socialism, contribute to the greater good, but you have the ability to work and do something. I mean, even if somebody has no legs, they can still sit in front of a computer and do something. You should be able to do some sort of work and do some sort of job. Maybe some jobs, some people may have a more difficult time of it than others. Some people may not be cut out for certain things, but you should be able to do some sort of work. No one should be at home, all the time being like, I just can't work. And obviously, when I say at home, I'm not talking about moms, because a stay-at-home mom is a job. That's the job of raising the children, or stay-at-home dad or something like that. But there shouldn't be a situation where somebody is going, you know what, I just don't feel like getting a job. I'm just going to sit here and I expect people to pay for my house for me and pay for my food for me and everything like that. And I don't feel like doing anything. And that was the belief back then, that everybody should be doing work, and that when you do your job, you should be doing it to the best of your ability. People began looking for ways to get jobs done faster and make better use of their land. They learned to rotate their crops, and to increase milk and meat production in scientific ways. New tools were invented for plowing, planting, and reaping. With new efficient farming methods, many farm workers were freed to work at other jobs. So there were new tools that were invented for getting the plants together and everything like that. And we're going to talk about some of those. In the textile industry, which is kind of weird. The word textile, I always thought sounds like tiles because it's textiles, but textiles are not tiles. They're like cloths. So in the textile industry, which is making of rugs and cloths and different materials, it has always been very important in England, but it had always been done with the slow-moving spinning wheels and hand-operated looms. Like they would just sit there and hand-operated the looms, and they used to, you ever hear the Sleeping Beauty? She, pricked her finger on a loom. It's like the thing that kind of sewed clothes together. Inventive Englishmen went to work, create machines that would bring about faster and more efficient production. The flying shuttle, some of these are fun names, the flying shuttle, the spinning jenny, and the power loom all helped speed up the process and give jobs to many people. This is a very important invention. After James Watt of Scotland, he was a Scotland guy, James Watt, he had perfected the steam engine. The textile factories had all the power they needed, and production increased greatly. The steam engine was something that you'd be able to put into a machine. Basically, it was like the first machine-powered thing. Other changes. Englishmen now went to work solving other problems. They found an inexpensive way to change iron into steel and better and safer ways to work in their coal mines. Coal mines are very, very dangerous jobs. If you were working in a coal mine, especially a few hundred years ago, I mean, the lifespan of coal miners was like in their 30s. Like I would be considered a very elderly coal miner, They wouldn't live too much past that. They dug canals, built better ships, laid railroads, and before long were making use of such American inventions as the steamship and the telegraph. Cities grew, telegraph was like the precursor of the telephone. Cities grew along with the factories, and many new cities sprang up in England. England began to increase its trade with other countries to get more raw materials to refine in the factories. Raw materials are natural resources that can be used for producing other goods. Some raw materials are cotton, which can be turned into cloth, iron, which can be turned into steel, clay, which can be used for making china, and milk, which can be turned into cheese. So those are raw materials. What raw materials are is something that you get and you use to make something else. Like if you just get iron and you use that iron and rubber, you take those things and you make them into a bicycle or something like that. Raw materials are what you use to get something else. You can use the raw materials of flour, milk, eggs, and butter to get a cake, right? Kind of like the ingredients. Why don't I stop there? We'll deal with some of the kings in that time next time. So that's all the different age of industry. Essentially, the key to get in this is the Industrial Revolution just critically changed everything that was going on. With the work of, they say in the work of a cotton gin, which is one of those things. I don't know if we're going to talk about the cotton gin. We might. I don't remember if we do. But the cotton gin was invented in this time, and it took like the work in one day. The cotton gin could do, one machine could do, one man with a cotton gin could do what 50 people could do before. So imagine the speed at which things could happen. Now it's interesting because we've had this kind of jump in industry several times in history, and this caused there to be, obviously you'd need less people working in a field or working in an industry that had some machine, and people had to transition into other jobs. We've seen this in our lifetimes. There have been many industries that people had to transition out of. They used to be, TV repairmen. We don't have TV repairmen now. Why? Because TVs are so cheap now. Now you might say, TVs are $400 or $500. That's not cheap. Cheap comparatively to what they were. You could work, buy a TV for a day's salary or something like that nowadays. But back then, it was a lot more expensive, comparatively. And so TVs, you'd have it repaired when it broke, and you wouldn't get a new one. Nowadays, if a TV breaks, you just get a new one. So a TV repairman or a shoe repairman. There used to be people that repair shoes. Now if your shoe rips, you just get another pair. Another pair is like $30, $40 or something like that if you can get them cheap enough, which is still cheap enough that you wouldn't sit there and repair them if you got like a rip in the sole of your shoe. Rather just pay $30 and get a different pair I know a lot of shoes are like $100, but you'd want to pay that instead of, comparatively, if shoes were $500 a pair, you'd be like, now I'm going to repair my shoes. I'm not going to go buy another pair. But that's kind of happening with a lot of industries. Some people have talked about, like, I don't know, what jobs are going to be eliminated in the next 20, 30 years. And people are going back and forth. Like this coronavirus panic has actually made people think that automation isn't going to be as valuable as people thought. Like, I'll use an example. Cash, this is an example for you with your dad. Some people were saying that truck drivers are going to be less and less and less used in the future over the next 50 years because they've trying to develop automated trucks, like self-driving trucks. However, in this time of what's been going on, people have been seeing that they're much more valuable. Having an actual truck driver or an actual whatever automated, something that's not automated, is a very valuable service to have. But one thing you are seeing that we're probably going to see more often are like the cashiers at McDonald's or whatever. You're seeing a machine instead. That's something you're probably going to see more and more frequently. Instead of having 5 cashiers at a counter at a McDonald's or something, you're going to have one cashier and then a bunch of machines. And, the self-checkout in grocery stores. Self-checkout's only like 5 years old. So there's always industries that are changing and changing and changing. And sometimes it's surprising what sticks around. Sometimes it's surprising what doesn't stick around. But you'll always see that. The important thing is when you get old enough and you're choosing a job, to choose a field to choose a field that's going to last a long time, but also to have a profession, to have an ability to be flexible enough with what you can do, that you don't choose a profession that's going to be, outdated. Like if we're right now deciding, I want to be a newspaper delivery guy. I'd be like, that probably isn't the right choice of career because, handheld newspapers aren't really that popular anymore. Printed newspapers, everything's online, Think about that. So the age of industry changed everything. It made all the work more efficient. So that's our history lesson today.